I want a Reuben burger, but for real.
Welcome to the Aerial Perspective, where I, Ariel, share my perspective on what I think, do, eat, or whatever. In this video, I'm going to be making corned beef two ways. Now, you might be asking, aren't they going way out of their way to make a Reuben burger? Yes, I am. For a couple reasons. Firstly, making my own corned beef gives me total control of the flavor, the curing time, and the cut of beef I'm using. Secondly, doing it yourself just tastes better. Also, I wanted to try it two ways because I'm very intrigued by the two different methods. According to Joy of Cooking by Irma Rombauer, in wet curing, meat is either submerged in a brine or covered with a curing mixture and placed in a bag or deep, snug-fitting dish in the refrigerator. When the curing period is over, the salts have made it to the center of the meat and it is ready to cook. Whether meat is brined or covered in cure, salt draws out excess moisture. The salt then diffuses throughout the meat, firming its texture and making the interior inhospitable to pathogens." End quote. The main pathogen to be aware of here is Clostridium botulinum, which causes botulism, a serious illness that can affect the nervous system. This bacterium thrives in low oxygen environments between certain temperatures. This is especially important for preserving foods through canning, but also plays a role in these recipes. The salt and curing salt will help keep away any potential threats of pathogens, as will the even temperature of my fridge where each piece of meat will be stored and left to cure. I will also note that in the excerpt that I read from Joy of Cooking, it details that a wet cure can either utilize a brine or a curing mixture. This means that both of the recipes that I am demonstrating are wet curing methods. To differentiate between the two, I'll be calling the recipe using the curing mixture the dry brine, and the one using the salt and sugar solution the wet brine recipe. The first way I'm demonstrating is a dry brine recipe from Julia Child, which is published in her book, The Way to Cook.
Now the meat.
Yeah, I'm doing a chuck roast. Okay, so I'm a meat cutter, so whatever. This is a primal. I got it from a local shop. I needed 10 pounds of beef, and I needed them in the 5-pound pieces, so I was like, whatever, let me just get this 16-pound chuck roast. I'm just trimming the silver skin, anything that looks discolored. The discoloration is totally normal, but it isn't something that I want to leave on and eat later. I could have bought 2 large chuck roasts, but I figured why not show off a little for y'all. Here is the beef in the dry brine in a bag in a Cambro container, because that was just what made sense to me. Here I am getting something to weigh down the meat. The pressure from the weight of these objects will help get the juices going as the cure begins. Of course, it's very important to label everything, so that's what I'm doing here, and I'm noting the date that this went in the fridge. That is the most important part of the label. I have chosen to use the word uncured on the label here to bring awareness to the fact that the U.S. Department of Agriculture has a misleading interpretation of the word cured. It is permissible in the United States to label a cured product as uncured as long as it was not produced with the use of synthetic nitrates or nitrites. However, the USDA has a specific definition of synthetic. For example, it is completely legal to label bacon cured with the highly processed celery juice powder as uncured. Therefore, the definition of synthetic nitrites and nitrates, according to the USDA, refers to pink curing salts, saltpeter, and similar products that are not naturally derived, so to speak. This dry brined corned beef recipe from Julia Child contains no such products, and the labeling reflects that. There is a process every single day of turning it, massaging it, and just checking on the meat, making sure that it is doing okay and not growing anything weird. So got some juices on day 1, and it's looking super good. Massage it super well, put it back in. Okay, day 2. and I can remove the weights, and I will just do the exact same thing. Take it out, look at the juices. I find that the liquid progressively started to get darker, especially on day 2, very much on day 3. And here's day 3. So I think right away, I mean, the lighting is particularly good in this shot, but it is very dark, like almost black. Very, very dark liquid, and like double the amount of liquid than the day before.
Hey, so now I'm gonna make corned beef, like the regular corned beef with curing salt. Of course, I couldn't find any curing salt in a store anywhere, so I had to order it on Amazon. It should be arriving today, but I've yet to receive it. So I am mixing everything together except for the curing salt, aka pink salt number 1, Prague powder number 1. Anyways, I'm gonna put all the things in the pot, bring it to a simmer, dissolve it, add the pink salt later, pour it over the beef. That's the wet cure for corned beef.
So the wet brine recipe comes from Joy of Cooking by Irma Rombauer. This recipe I did not have to cut in half. I was able to follow it to a T. The only substitution that I made actually was it calls for brisket, and I'm using chuck. A note from Julia Child says, brisket is the traditional beef cut, but it's not the only one. Boneless chuck, such as the eye roast, which contains the continuation of the ribeye, is another choice. However, I really prefer either the top or bottom round because it slices up into neat, chic pieces. End quote. So, there's a huge difference between the fat content of all of the cuts that she mentions. Top or bottom round is very lean, whereas brisket and boneless chuck have more fat. So there could be varied results with each of these different cuts.
Yeah, I'm going to bring that to a simmer. If it boils, that's fine. I don't care what you do. I'm just telling you what I'm going to do, okay? It needs to dissolve. I'm going to make it dissolve. And then I'm going to put cold water into it. Exactly the same amount I just did, 1895 grams. Actually 94 because I was over a gram. Oh my god. And just to cool it down, I could put all the water in now and just heat it up and then let it cool, whatever. Honestly, as long as it all gets it with the hanging with the meat, as long as it ends up on the meat and it's cool when it goes on the meat, we're gonna be fine. Hopefully Amazon shows up soon.
In the wet brine recipe, there are 3 elements at work that are preventing spoilage during the curing process. Number 1 is temperature. My fridge stays between 37 to 40 degrees. Number 2 is salt, which creates an inhospitable environment for bacteria and draws out excess moisture. And number 3 is curing salt, which prevents botulism. This is the insurance policy. The curing salt also adds that flavor that you might be used to when you taste ham, hot dogs, and bacon. So Amazon did pull through for me that day, and the pink curing salt arrived just in time. And here it is. This is the highly contentious ingredient, and it shall be put into the wet brine, and then shortly after, I will put in the meat once the whole solution is cooled.
Well, last night I put the corned beef in the brine, and now I'm gonna pump it up.
So I'm using a meat injector to put the brine into the meat, and also I just give it a few stabs so that the brine naturally finds its way in, and this is to prevent a gray center. The pink color won't get all the way to the center sometimes just because of the size of the meat and or how long it's cured for. So I let this go 10 days, and I just wanted to make sure that that meat was cured all the way to the middle, so that when I grind it, or even just when I braise it whatever, however I choose to cook it, it's consistent throughout. And thanks for tuning in to the Aerial Perspective. Please give this a like and subscribe if you want to see the next video where I cook each of these recipes and compare the results. Also, I'm going to have up a burger recipe video soon, so please stay tuned and I will see you next time.